Today on the channel, we throw up the horns for another G.I. Joe retro unboxing, this time with a little bit of rock and roll.
The spirit of Ultimate Warrior will run forever!
Welcome everyone, Kyle here, and welcome back to the channel for another G.I. Joe retro card unboxing and review. And as the great Lemmy Kilmister once sang, I got rock and roll, it satisfies my soul. Well, we're going to find out if this figure satisfies my soul here today. And of course, for all your rock and roll needs, hit up Entertainment Earth. Use the link in the description down below. And of course, we're going to do this review like we do all the other reviews on the channel. We're going to take a look at the packaging. We're going to talk about it. We're going to unbox it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to see where it goes from there. And this one will be interesting how it compares, and we'll compare later on in this very video, to the G.I. Joe classified version we got last year. Something like that. What is time, as we always do say. But rock and roll, an old school favorite from the Joe fans. Of course, for me personally, when I think G.I. Joe, I always go back to the cartoons. Then I usually go to the toys, then the comics, kind of the pantheon. You might be somewhere in that mix as well. But rock and roll, when I think of him, I think of the old school G.I. Joe team from the cartoon. Obviously, a very cool character all these years later. A big, heavy gunner, kind of replaced by Roadblock in a lot of ways in the cartoon. But I always did appreciate rock and roll. Always enjoyed rock and roll throughout the years. And I hope we get some of the later days of the Joes, in the 90s, we'll call it. Some of those rock and rolls as well. We got him with that nice baseball cap on. There were some cool rock and roll figures over the years. And this one looks fairly cool as well. But let's dive into rock and roll. Let's see if it can satisfy my soul. Let's dive into it. Now, this is shipping from Amazon right now. Should be shipping everywhere else, hopefully very soon. We'll see what happens with that. But of course, retro card art, we absolutely love that. A little bit too AI maybe in the artwork, especially in some of the current releases that are coming in the future, or the future releases, I guess more like it. You got to watch out for those 6 fingers, of course, as we do know. But a little bit off in the artwork. A cool idea, but just a little bit off, me personally. Though, G.I. Joe logo at top, that's my G.I. Joe logo, of course. What's it say on ages 4 and up? You 3-year-olds, can you even understand what I'm saying, you 3-year-olds? Can you pick up everything I'm putting down? If you can pick anything up, don't pick this up, because you're too young. It's got to be 4 and up for this bad boy here. Of course, the figure back in there, all kinds of stuff going on. On the back, Jibber, the Jabber, the UPCs. We do got the cross-sell. Dr. Mindbender, a former San Diego Comic-Con exclusive once upon a time, of course. And then a Viper, a great army builder there. So you're going to be interested to take a look at each of those on the channel in the future as well. But rock and roll, probably the one that excites me the most of the threesome right there. Now, we do get the old school file card. You know I love that. I wish Classified had the file card still. They do not, though. All right, rock and roll. McConnell Craig S. That's a strange name. McConnell Craig. Never heard of anybody like that. Or maybe it's Craig McConnell. Yeah, that's probably more like it. Roll machine gunner. Primary specialty, infantry. Secondary specialty, PT instructor. Very similar to a PE instructor, but totally different at the same time. Birthplace, Malibu, California. You know he's catching a wave, and he'll be on top of the world. We know how that goes with him. Rock and roll, was a surfer and a weightlifter in Malibu prior to enlistment. He also played bass guitar in local rock bands. Kind of sounds like we're explaining the California version of Hulk Hogan, are we not? He possesses a strong sense of loyalty to his teammates and is a man of honor and integrity who can be counted on to hold the line. Yes, like a young Little Giants, he can hold that line, of course. But rock and roll looking good. Looking like the classic version of rock and roll, no doubt about it. And whenever I see rock and roll, for whatever reason, always reminds me of my grandpa. He has since passed away a few years back, but he was in the Korean War back in the day. And always reminds me of my grandpa. Even as a kid, rock and roll reminded me of my grandpa, especially his army pictures and stuff like that. And, you know, my grandpa was a welder by trade. He was a man's man, a lot like rock and roll right here. So shout out to my grandpa, shout out to rock and roll. But can I get him out of the package? These retro cards, always difficult to get out of the package, as we do know. And I think I got to go in through the back door. Thankfully for everyone here, everybody knows I'm the master of the back door, of course. Never have problems getting in and out of there, of course, as we know. We've shown it on the channel a time or two, but we're going to get rock and roll out of the package here through the back door. There it is, packaging. See you later, up high, goodbye. Now, we do get that G.I. Joe stand. Wish all the classified figures came with these stands. Also wish Hasbro Pulse would sell these in like 10 packs. Give us 10 packs of Cobra stands. Give us 10 packs of G.I. Joe stands, licensed to print some money. You're already making it. You might as well make some extras. Would love to see them do that in the future. Pro tip for you, Hasbro. Instructions here. Where we're going, we don't need instructions. See you later, Spider-Man style, of course. And then we got the old plastic prison for rock and roll. We're ready to go. We're ready to dance on out here. Can I pop everything out of the package? Let's see. Let's see. Can we get it? We get extra hands. We don't get a lot of extra hands with the G.I. Joe figures, as we do know, but Rock and Roll, his former incarnation, also came with extra hands, so that was nice to see those hands once again. And there we go. And there we go. Looking pretty good. See you later. Off to the side. Goodbye. All right, let's get down to business. Let's get down to rock and roll business. And of course, Rock and Roll loves his rock music. I guess he looks kind of like a Vietnam soldier, I guess. So if he was in Nam, he was probably rocking out to some CCR, probably. He was probably rocking some CCR, maybe some 10 years after. Could be. Maybe even some Deep Purple. Maybe. Who knows? But you know he's a rock and roller to the end. Let's start off with the hands here. We got 2 trigger hands right out of the package. Makes a lot of sense for rock and roll. But we also got the heavy metal hands. He's throwing up the horns for a young Ronnie James Dio back then. Probably the Rainbow years, most likely. But he's throwing it up for Ronnie James Dio. No tattoo on the hand. So the classified one, more of a modern take on what rock and roll would be. This is, of course, a more modern take, or a classic take, more like it. So we did get that. And then we got a Fist of Fury, of course. You know when the ammo's all out, the fists come out and rock and roll's throwing punches. Of course, in bunches. We know how he gets. We did get a little pistol. Looks like we can slide that into the side piece over there. Got the holster for it, but it is a straight up pistol here, all in black. You got the big old heavy machine gun here. Of course, you got the little stand that comes down, looking good. All in black. Got a handle up top up here, but he is a heavy machine gunner. Makes a lot of sense. We do got all the extra ammo that you can slide into here and connect to it. Got to have that, of course. And then we do got the big old, I was going to say clip, but is it a magazine? Is it a magazine or is it a clip or what is it? I guess it's neither. It's neither of these. It's just ammo and it feeds right through here there. But no clip or any of that kind of stuff on here. It just feeds on through and then, of course, feeds into here as well, as this is removable if you want this out of there, so you can feed the long one in there. Short one, long one, choose your own adventure right there. You guys know me, I'm a gun expert. You know that, you've learned that by now on the channel. Looking good right there, but I also know how to walkie and I know how to talkie as well. He does got a walkie-talkie. I remember the walkie-talkie was the coolest thing ever. I remember my buddy and I, he lived like across the street to me and like 5 houses down. I remember we were kids once time. Story time with Kyle, here it comes, for good or for bad. I remember I was at like, I don't know if it was at Target or Walmart or something like that, and they had walkie-talkies in the toy. I said, I can give this to me and my buddy Robbie. We can get walkie-talkies, then we can communicate to each other all the time. And I thought it'd be the coolest thing. I said, hey, we're both going to be in bed at like 9:30, whatever. It was a school night or whatever when we were kids. Like, let's say we were 8 years old. And I gave him one of the walkie-talkies, and we got on the same channel, made sure they worked and everything. And then, you know, that night we were going to get on there at the same time, and nothing. Nothing. Radio silence, couldn't get anything. Obviously, it was cheap walkie-talkies. It couldn't make it 5 houses down the street. So disappointing times for us. I was giving him the business the next day. Why weren't you on the walkie-talkie? He was giving me the same business. So never did get that walkie-talkie conversation, unfortunately, there. But it does look good. The green and black attack does peg into the side of him as well, onto his holster. We'll get to that here in a second. But nice to see a little walkie and a little talkie right there. Getting down to rock and roll right here. We do got the helmet, of course, a classic helmet for rock and roll. You go back to those original G.I. Joes, this is what you think of with rock and roll, with the helmet and all that. So nice on there. Put it on, take it off, choose your own adventure. Now we get down to rock and roll, and similar to the last one, but a little bit different. I do like the blonde hair. He's giving that Malibu appearance, of course. He's ready to hang 10 on the surf, as we know how he would do it. He does got that big, bushy beard. A nice blonde beard matches the hair as well. But what I don't like is his eyebrows are way too dark. They're way too black. It looks like 2 caterpillars climbed up there and just died like a young ox baker. Who knows? But wild in there. We could have used a little tint in there maybe, or made him yellow as well to match. I don't know, but way too dark compared to the rest of the hair, if you ask me. Almost looks like he's bleaching his hair blonde that he should be black. Who knows? But definitely a wild look in the head sculpt there. Now we do get down to the body here. We do got all the ammo wrapped over the top. He's a true gunner. He's ready to go. He's got all kinds of extra ammo. He's ready to take on the world like a young man of war, of course. Now he just got the belt buckle there. All kinds of packets in there. All kinds of storage possibilities. Obviously they're molded in, but he's got plenty of that. He's also got the little canteen back here. Get a little bit of water if he needs to. And then we do got 2 ports on the side of the hip. One of those for the walkie-talkie. One of these for this as well, I think. I don't know. Your mileage may vary how well they stay in there. And obviously they do get knocked off fairly easily, but you can store them on there. So nice to be able to store everything on the character. Obviously you can't store the extra hands on there, which is unfortunate, but very cool. No backpack with Rock and Roll though. I mean, it kind of feels like he should have had a backpack of some kind, but he doesn't. He doesn't. Got the holster on the side here for a little side piece ready to go. Of course, got the very stereotypical army green outfit throughout down to the brown boots. Looking like a normal army guy is what he looks like to me, with a little pizzazz, a little of that extra rock and roll pizzazz, what he's got going on there. Got the bare arms going on, quite muscular, of course. Got that beautiful veinage right there he gets from lifting on the beach, of course. Articulation, a little bit of butterfly shoulders, not a whole lot to write home about. Arms going all the way around for us. Bicep cut, double jointed, pinless elbows. Playing all the hits. Todd McFarlane, hopefully you're taking notes over there on the couch. Hands back and forth, side to side. Got the trigger hand as we mentioned earlier. Head back, forth, side to side. Head removable, it should be. Yes, it is. Now, that is one thing we can do, is you can replace it with the other one. We'll bring him out in here in a second here. You do get neck articulation as well. Ab crunch plus dumbbell waist, back and forth, side to side. Big old splits if you need it. Of course, you can't have Rock and Roll without the splits, can you? Well, I guess you could, Todd. I guess you could. You're right. You do got a little bit of that. You got the drop down hips as well. Goes up for the big boot like a young Hulkster, of course. Thigh cut. Double jointed, pinless knees. The hits continue. Boot cut, ankles, back, forth, side to side, up and down. The usual G.I. Joe articulation all these years later. This holster sliding down the leg. I hate that. Reminds me of Cyclops from Marvel Legends. Want those to stay in place a little bit better. I guess a little dab of super glue wouldn't hurt anything. You do got the hole in the back too if you do want to, of course, put a backpack in there for whatever reason. Now, does he fit on a Mattel ringside collectible stand using discount code Kyle? Save 10%. What do you know? It's a Christmas miracle here. Christmas in May, I guess is what we'll call it. But Rock and Roll, ready to go. The classic version, the more iconic version, there's no doubt about it. But like I said, we did get a second version not long ago, and we did get this one over here. And yes, right where I'm seeing it right here, the differences in the head sculpt. Obviously the same head here, but he's got the blonde eyebrows here, where he's got the definitely dark black, dark brown caterpillars over here. So you could swap these heads between the two if that is something you wanted to do. But it is the same sculpt, but it's just, that's what paint does. It gives you different. He's got more of a translucent pale skin tone over here, a more peachy skin tone on this one. So you do definitely got some differences between the two here. But very cool how the paint just changes the character. You got the same holsters going on, the same ammo, you got the same belt, but just a little bit of different paint makes it almost feel like a totally entirely different figure. So very cool to see that. A little bit more detail on the helmet as well, part of the classified one. So classified retro, pick your own poison. It's gonna be interesting. I'd be interested to hear which one you prefer of the two. I like the idea of the modern one. I definitely like the head better on this one, but when I close my eyes, as I do many a night, and I try to get on the walkie-talkie with my buddy, this is the Rock and Roll I think of, besides the eyebrows at least. But to be interested to hear where you net out between what is your preferred version of Rock and Roll. Or maybe it's that one from the early 90s with the baseball hat and the big two machine guns or whatever those are. I don't know. Let me know in the comments your preferred version of Rock and Roll and your thoughts on this one as well. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on the old notification bell. You know we're unboxing all the Joes over here on the channel. Don't forget about Patreon and YouTube channel memberships. If you want early content, bonus content, you want to support the channel, that is the place to be. SirPaul64 on the X, _Kyle_Peterson on Threads, Instagram, TikTok, and TheKylePetersonShow at gmail.com. And of course, that is my podcast every single Tuesday, wherever podcasts are found. Video cast also on YouTube. All kinds of stuff getting broke down on the podcast each and every week. Check it out. Appreciate all the support. Appreciate the support of my book, The Complete Guide to the ECW Original San Francisco Toy Makers. Copies available from me or on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Appreciate the support over there. So for a little rock and roll, hopefully it's satisfied all of our souls. I am Kyle. See you guys all real soon.
Are we gonna dance or are we gonna play?